People assume money replaces love because of greed. That is not what happens. Money replaces uncertainty. When emotional safety becomes unstable, the nervous system searches for something that does not react back. Money fits that role. It does not argue, it does not leave, it does not need reassurance. Over time, the body trusts money more than people without ever making that decision consciously. Money starts to feel safer than people long before it becomes obvious. This shift does not come from wanting more, it comes from learning what does not move. The nervous system tracks patterns without language. It notices distance, tone shifts, and conditional closeness. Over time, these changes register as risk. People carry emotion and reaction. Money does not. It behaves the same regardless of mood or context. That consistency matters more than comfort. For a nervous system shaped by unpredictability, calm comes from what stays still. Financial pressure becomes a signal instead of a threat. It points toward where regulation happens faster. Numbers reduce tension more reliably than conversations. Control lowers exposure more efficiently than connection. The body does not label this as preference. It experiences it as relief. There is no decision point. The body simply relaxes more around numbers than around people. Safety begins attaching itself to predictability. Stability stops meaning closeness. It starts meaning control. Money absorbs uncertainty not because it satisfies, but because it does not react back. This is not a trait, it is a survival adjustment. When emotional environments feel unstable, money becomes where the nervous system rests. This pattern forms before money is understood as currency. It develops while safety is learned through tone and reaction. As children, the nervous system watches what changes the room. Stress tightens voices, scarcity narrows patience, relief restores calm. The child tracks atmosphere, not numbers. Over time, money becomes associated with whether the environment feels safe or tense. In some homes, affection thins under pressure. Attention becomes conditional. Emotional space narrows. The nervous system links financial stress to emotional distance. It learns the sequence. When pressure rises, connection drops. When pressure eases, connection returns. This repetition forms association. Later in life, control over money feels calming because it once predicted emotional availability. Loss of control feels destabilizing because it once preceded withdrawal. The adult may call this responsibility. The body experiences it as familiarity. Money becomes the object that absorbs uncertainty because it once forecasted whether care would be accessible. This association forms below awareness and shapes how safety is defined. Emotional closeness can feel risky. Financial control feels grounding. The nervous system trusts what it learned early. Money did not create the pattern, it became the signal that made the environment manageable. Once this association is set, the nervous system relies on it automatically. It does not compare money and people consciously, it remembers what lowered tension before. When uncertainty appears, the body looks for regulation, not understanding. Human relationships introduce variables that require monitoring. Tone shifts, availability changes, emotional states fluctuate. Money remains external and measurable. That predictability registers as lower threat. Survival logic reshapes priorities. Safety links to control rather than closeness. Regulation becomes more important than connection. Managing resources downshifts activation faster than navigating emotional complexity. Emotional proximity can trigger vigilance instead of calm. Financial control produces the opposite response. Breathing slows, muscles release, attention narrows. Trust flows toward what does not escalate or react back. Money becomes a boundary the nervous system can manage. It offers limits relationships cannot guarantee. Reduced exposure feels like safety to a system shaped by inconsistency. This logic operates below awareness. It quietly guides relief and withdrawal. Money feels safer than people because it became the fastest path the nervous system knows for exiting threat. As the survival logic stabilizes, it shapes identity. The nervous system protects continuity. Once money becomes the stabilizer, the self organizes around maintaining control. Letting go of that control can feel unsafe even when nothing is wrong. A conflict forms. Closeness is wanted, regulation must be preserved. When relationships require dependence, the body tightens. Dependence threatens the structure that kept activation low. Over time, identity aligns with what worked. Self-reliance feels responsible, emotional distance feels steady, financial control feels grounding. These traits are reinforced because the body relaxes when they are maintained. Calm becomes the reward, activation becomes the penalty. Loyalty forms not to money, but to the identity that survived without emotional consistency from others. Choosing deeper connection can feel like abandoning that structure. This conflict appears as hesitation, withdrawal, and discomfort when reliance is required. Money reinforces this loyalty by offering a role that stays intact under stress. Relationships challenge containment. The nervous system chooses stability first. Not because people are unwanted, but because the identity built around financial control once kept the environment survivable. This pattern becomes clearer through specific mechanisms. Loss aversion intensifies because loss threatens destabilization, not comfort. Guilt conditioning strengthens control because early calm followed restraint. Using money in uncertain ways can trigger guilt automatically, not because it's wrong, but because it threatens the regulating structure. Money dysmorphia can emerge. Enough never feels sufficient. Stability never feels complete. The nervous system measures safety internally, not numerically. Identity-based income ceilings form. Expansion increases exposure, visibility, and dependence. The nervous system may resist growth quietly to preserve the controlled identity that once minimized threat. These mechanisms narrow behavior without announcing themselves. Caution feels rational, distance feels mature, control feels wise. The body rewards containment with calm and punishes deviation with tension. Over time, this feels like character rather than conditioning. Money becomes the object through which safety, guilt, perception, and identity are regulated. As these mechanisms stay active, behavior narrows further. The nervous system favors choices that preserve regulation efficiently. Emotional exposure is managed, dependence is rationed. Situations requiring trust without limits create resistance. Financial control becomes the buffer. Attention moves toward what can be measured and contained. Conversations that feel open-ended shorten. Opportunities that increase visibility are approached cautiously. This feels like discernment, not fear. The nervous system labels narrowing as maturity and responsibility. Stability becomes dependent on continued control. This escalation happens incrementally. What once regulated becomes required. Flexibility decreases without notice. Relief becomes conditional. Money carries the regulatory load relationships cannot guarantee. Narrowing feels safer than exposure. Over time, this system stops feeling like a response. It feels like reality. Money becomes the condition under which calm is possible. Control becomes non-negotiable. Anything that threatens it feels unsafe. The loop closes without resolution. The more money carries regulation, the less room remains for connection. The less room for connection, the more money compensates. The system functions, it preserves order and keeps activation low. That's why it stays in place. The cost is subtle. Emotional closeness feels foreign. Dependence feels unnecessary. Relief ties itself to containment rather than presence. Money feels safer than people because it has been asked to do a job it was never meant to do. It regulates what relationships once carried. It holds pressure displaced long ago. The nervous system trusts it because it learned to. The question is not whether the system works. It does. The question is what remains available when safety is built entirely on what cannot respond back.